If you're tired of feeling tired, tired of being flat, low energy, burned out, if you're tired of feeling like that all the time, and you've tried all the things you're supposed to do, like sleeping more and spraying some infrared bullshit thing on your face or whatever, cold showers, all that stuff, if you tried all the things and you can't shake being tired, then this video might help you. Because it's about how all those things are helpful sometimes, but they're just one piece of the puzzle. And actually the deeper issue is that a lot of the time we're tired, not purely because of the physical stuff, but because the emotional and mental things going on inside ourselves that cause us to hold on to things that aren't even real. If you want to flow, you want to feel energized, then you need to find something real. That's what this video is going to be about. Freeing up your energy by refinding your own realness. The bottom line is that you could sleep for 10 hours a day, 15 hours a day, 20 hours a day, and you're still going to feel exhausted if your nervous system, your emotions, and your thoughts are causing you to be fragmented within yourself, and then causing you to have a fragmented relationship with life where you're constantly having to waste energy on upholding illusions, battling the projections of your own fragmentation, and causing friction, frustration, and misery for yourself. One reason that we're so tired all the time is because we become unreal with ourselves. There's a gap between who we think we are, the ego, and all the parts of ourselves that are very real that we've sent into hiding in order to keep the ego in place. When we're living like that, fragmented, instead of putting ourselves on the path towards wholeness, then we spend so much time getting caught up in illusory battles in our minds that just cause us to waste energy. It freaks out the nervous system, it causes our minds to race, and it blocks us emotionally. And so if you want to get your energy back, and you've tried all the things at the physical level, then perhaps the way forward is to go inside and to see where you're holding yourself back from being real and flowing and growing and moving forward. So this has nothing to do with anything, but it kind of looks like there could be a storm on the horizon. Who knows? We can only keep our fingers crossed. So of course, physical exhaustion is a real thing, but it's only a symptom in many cases. It's a symptom of the choices that we make about what to do with our body. Where are we going to direct it? What are we going to put our energy into? And those choices are always made based on what's going on with us at the level of our emotions and the level of the mind. And so if your emotions are blocked, or you're trying to hide from your feelings, or if your mind is caught up in getting lost on wasting time on the ego, upholding the ego the way you want to see yourself instead of the way you actually are, then you're going to constantly send your body into places that it doesn't need to go, at paces it doesn't need to move at, and on things that it doesn't even need to be wasting time on. And so a lot of the time, if we're exhausted, it's because we've been sending ourselves too far into too much unreality, rather than doing something that we actually want to be doing when we're grounded and present and real in ourselves. At the purely physical level, many of us are exhausted because our emotions and our way of thinking about things has sent us into a state of either hyper arousal or hypo-arousal. So we're either too worked up and we're stuck in fight or flight mode. We've got sympathetic dominance, i.e. our nervous system is constantly getting activated at the level of the sympathetic nervous system. Or we've got hyperarousal, which means that we've gone all the way beyond fight or flight and we find ourselves in freeze. We feel trapped, we feel sluggish and lethargic. Both of those things just mean that the nervous system got dysregulated because we were pushing it in an unreal way. And so of course the physical level is important, and the first step is always to regulate the nervous system, to get into your breath, come out in nature like this, just spend time with people that you care about, being real. All those things can help you to come back into your nervous system, a state of regulation, so that you're not seeing threats everywhere, including at the level of your own inner emotional experience. But ultimately, these other levels of the emotional life and the thought life that we have they contribute way more, especially when we're already dysregulated because of our modern lifestyles and the way that we choose to use our bodies to do things that aren't real. One of the main reasons that we push ourselves to become physically exhausted, i.e. that we keep choosing to push our bodies in directions and places they don't want to go, is because at the level of our emotions, we don't want to feel our feelings. And so we become so busy as a distraction that we eventually burn out. The reason we don't want to feel our feelings is because we have underlying shame, guilt, and or trauma in the worst cases. And when we've got these underlying feelings, of course we don't want to feel them in the short term for two reasons. One, it sucks. Like in the short term, feeling those feelings is going to be difficult. But in the long term, it means that if we do feel them, we're going to have to transcend the current version of our identity, ego, which is built as a reaction to avoiding those feelings. And so we find all kinds of things to distract ourselves with in the world, like working too much, or becoming intoxicated all the time, or chasing goals just for the sake of having something to do, instead of because it's a real expression of who we are. Coming out here and talking on these videos, there's so many things we can do, but ultimately, if we're distracting ourselves from our feelings with unreal activity, then of course we're going to get tired and we're going to burn out. And this is why we can say that a lot of our energy is wasted on not feeling our feelings, on avoiding life, resisting life, instead of accepting it. I should quickly let you know that I coach people and help them to overcome a lot of the things that I talk about in this video or any other video that you've seen. If you go to my website, there's a link here. You can book a free coaching session. It's not a sales call. I will literally just coach you and help you move forward. So if you're interested in that, there's the link. Mental exhaustion is really similar to emotional exhaustion, which makes sense because a lot of our thoughts are an extension of our unresolved emotional stuff. But ultimately, the main similarity is that if our thoughts are resistant of reality instead of accepting of it, then we just waste so much time constantly fighting the reality of ourselves and the reality of life, and that just causes so many problems. It drains us. Like, we can spend years and years of our lives just trying to trick ourselves into believing something, not because it's true, but because it's what we want to believe, so we can keep avoiding ourselves in life. Our thoughts are not the truth. People don't believe in the truth in general. They believe what they want to believe. And I suppose I get the irony, like me saying this, maybe I just want to believe this. But in general, we want to believe what we want to believe, and that's why we believe it. We don't believe it's because it's true. It allows us to keep avoiding ourselves. But if you've found that you're always tired, you're running out of energy, etc., then look at your thoughts. Probably you're resisting something because of underlying emotional stuff, and your thoughts are just keeping you in that loop of resisting the life you could be living, which is the life where you've got energy and you're not constantly banging your head against a brick wall trying to make things something they're not. One thing I should make clear is that even though I'm saying we should feel our feelings and that many problems come from not feeling our feelings, which is true, that doesn't mean that our feelings are the truth. Our feelings are temporary, but the truth is eternal. The problem is, sometimes we get caught up in confusing our feelings for the truth, and we follow our feelings, and we end up getting really lost because feelings contradict each other. They change from moment to moment. I'm not saying that you should live according to your feelings. I'm saying you should feel your feelings so that you can become energized by becoming integrated instead of fragmented. Mental exhaustion also shows up as overthinking, constantly trying to solve problems that you can't solve. Normally, if your brain is going around and around in circles, overthinking, it's because there's some question in there that can't be answered. So stop trying to answer the question and just slow down, trust, and wait until the answer either reveals itself or the next step becomes clear. Another example of mental exhaustion is control freakery. We try to control everything. We're constantly looking for ways to control the uncontrollable. That is a waste of energy because you're literally fighting reality itself, which is a battle that you're never going to be able to win. It's endless. There are so many ways that we can tire ourselves out, but it's all because of the way that we want to see ourselves in life instead of us accepting the way that it actually is. And I guess that's what I'm saying in this video. If you can make that shift from trying to see what you want to see to seeing what's actually there, then you can get more energy, because the energy is already there. The rest is already there. When you accept reality as it is, you get a rest from moment to moment. You become present. When you don't, you become your own worst enemy. You just end up worrying all the time. You're going back and forth on a rocking chair. It seems like you're doing something, but you're not going anywhere. That's what worrying's like. It's like being on a rocking chair. And ultimately, being real is about getting off the rocking chair and moving with life from moment to moment, letting that energize you instead of letting the resistance tire you out, make your nervous system even more dysregulated, and causing your emotions and your thoughts to keep stagnating and opening up this vicious cycle where it gets worse and worse and worse. Nervous system dysregulation, emotional blockages and resistance to life, mental cognitive distortions that cause us to resist as well. All of these things are symptoms of a deeper problem, which is that we have identified with the ego, a fragmented version of ourselves, and we sent the shadow self, which is just all the real parts of us, good and bad, into hiding. What that basically means, for the purpose of this video, I've made more videos about that on this channel if you want to check them out. What that basically means is that we're fragmented inside ourselves. And when we're fragmented, it means we're judging ourselves instead of accepting ourselves, and then we can't actually express who we really are because we don't know what it is that we have to express. And so then we waste so much time and energy on trying to express something that's not real, that's not aligned, all these different things, and it drives us mad, ultimately. We constantly become exhausted. We wonder what's wrong with us, what's wrong with life. The problem is there's nothing wrong with life, or the answer is there's nothing wrong with life. The problem is we just became disconnected from ourselves, and the way to get rest, the way to return back to regulation and emotional integration and not having our thoughts be our own worst enemy, is to return to reality. That's what rest really is. It's returning to your realness instead of fighting it. So it does look like that storm is gonna storm, or maybe I'm being dramatic, it's just rain. Either way, it's pretty cool. When we're dealing with this inner fragmentation, i.e. we become disconnected from our essence, our realness, and then we're not expressing it, then it basically creates a state of energetic incoherence, which sounds very fancy, but what it means is that our energy is no longer coherent. We're not using it in a way that's coherent and all pointing in the same direction. Instead, we find that our energy pulls us in all kinds of different directions at the same time, and then we wonder why we're burned out. So if we're dealing with fragmentation, our nervous system is going to be seeing threats everywhere. Not because there's threats around us, literally, but because we find our own emotions threatening, and then we project that out into the world around us. So we're instantly seeing all these threats everywhere, fighting them off, even though they don't really exist, and then we wonder why we're tired. At the same time though, we're going to have our emotions pulling us in all kinds of different directions, because they contradict each other anyway, but also because we have emotional blocks that are doing things beneath the surface of our experience. Then our mind is pulling us in various different directions that are all unreal, and it just keeps building and building and building. And so not only are we disconnected from ourselves, which is always going to make us feel restless and like there's more to life and that we're living in the void, we're also going to have this problem of energetic incoherence where our energy is kind of working against us, because everything is pulling us in an unreal direction instead of putting us where we really want to be, which is in the flow, in reality itself, which is the flow. And if you understand all this, you can start to work on your own fragmentation, start making choices that are going to lead you towards wholeness, and then put yourself back on the path, at the very least, to getting the rest that you know you need. If you feel exhausted all the time, like I said at the start of this video, and you've been doing all the stuff that we're supposed to do when we're exhausted, but it's not working, then you need to go deeper. You need to return to yourself. Then you return to life, and then you start flowing with it, instead of getting lost inside yourself and the ensuing storms. That would have been a great time for a burst of lightning, but it didn't happen. So it's starting to piss it down, which I kind of knew would happen, so I can't complain about it. Although there is like a random streak of sunlight on the hills over there, so it's not all doom and gloom. But anyway, To make matters worse, when your nervous system is dysregulated and you're dealing with all this other stuff I'm talking about, then the thing that you need the most, which is actual rest, starts to be seen as a threat. What that means is that you need a break. You need to slow down. You need to stop forcing yourself. All these different things. But then you feel guilty for doing it. And so if you take a day off work when it's your scheduled annual leave or whatever, you feel guilty to sit there in your pajamas and watch some thing that you want to watch. Or sometimes you just feel guilty about saying no to people because you want to stay at home and do nothing. Basically, if you feel like rest is a threat and you feel guilty for it, then ultimately that is showing you that a lot of the stuff I'm telling you in this video applies to you. We need rest so that we can be real. The reason we see it as a threat is because our ego is so used to identifying as the version of us that doesn't get rest and that has emotional and cognitive blocks, that it doesn't want us to take the rest. It's really that simple. Rest becomes a threat because it's going to return us back to our realness, and the ego doesn't want that to happen. And if you see this and understand this and start taking the rest that you deserve, then you're going to put yourself back on the path to being who you were supposed to be all along. So after hearing me rant and rave about all this here on beautiful planet Earth, probably my favorite planet, what do we do about it? Well, if you feel like the things I'm talking about might apply to you, the first thing to do is to reframe how you see rest in the first place. Don't see rest as about distracting yourself and doing nothing. For example, sitting around doom scrolling, binging on Netflix, blasting your mind by getting intoxicated or whatever. Of course, in moderation, if you want to do these things, that's up to you. But rest isn't about distracting yourself. The distraction just keeps you in all these patterns that I'm talking about. It keeps you emotionally blocked. It keeps you cognitively locked inside yourself, mentally locked inside yourself. And so the first thing to do is to just reframe how you see rest. See it as a return to reality. That's what it is. The rest comes from being real. So see the rest that you take as a return to reality. And then do anything that you can do to do that in your own life. To look at your thoughts by journaling, to start processing your emotions, to become more present by getting out in nature, doing yin yoga, by saying no to things that don't serve you. Start small, but just know that until you return to reality, whatever that is in the context of your life, you're always going to feel that your energy has been wasted, because it always is. If you put it into something unreal, you're going to get something unreal out, and it's never going to feel like your life. Something I've talked about in the last few videos is RIA. R-I-A. Regulate, integrate, accelerate. What that means is you regulate your nervous system, integrate your emotions, and then you accelerate, because the actions that you're going to be taking are more real. They're not going to waste your energy. They're going to charge you up, because you're going to be doing things that are aligned with your real values, that are an expression of who you really are, and that you actually care about, instead of forcing yourself to do things that are unreal because of those mental and emotional blocks causing you to mess up your nervous system, basically. If you start with regulation, you'll feel safe to feel your emotions. That's why regulation first is such a good strategy. When we're in this situation I'm talking about, where we're fragmented and we're filtering everything through the ego, our own emotions become a threat, because the nervous system confuses emotional discomfort for actual physical danger. And then we don't feel the feelings and we get caught up in a loop. So start with regulation. The thing I always recommend to everyone is yin yoga. Yin yoga is one of the best things I've ever found. Basically, it's about doing the yoga poses for a long time. You hold them for a long time, you get into your breath, and then whatever needs to come up comes up. But the breathing itself is also regulating. So that's another thing I tell people to do. Work on their breathing. But anyway, there's loads of stuff you can do. Regulate, integrate, accelerate. Anything you can do to tick off those boxes is going to help you to get more energy. The physical stuff is important. Of course, you need to exercise and look after yourself and all that stuff. I exercise every day. But these other things are part of the puzzle as well. You have to take a holistic approach. Otherwise, your energy is never going to be yours. It's just going to be something that is taken from you because something unreal has got a hold of you and it's making you move in ways you don't want to move. Basically, rest isn't something that you have to achieve. If you think you got to achieve it, like you have to go on a big mission to get rest by monitoring everything that you do, your sleep and your blood and your food and all these different things that people monitor. If you get on that hype and you turn it into another mission, then you're just going further down the path to unreality. I'm not saying those things can't help you, but you don't need to achieve rest. Rest is something you receive when you return to what's already there, which is your realness. You become present. You don't let your nervous system take you down the path of running away from threats that aren't there. You don't let your emotions block you and stop you expressing yourself and living your life. You don't let your thoughts turn against you and make you judge yourself and hold back. Instead, you just allow yourself to be what you are, and then you come from that place. So if you're tired all the time, then you probably need to reframe, return to reality, and then you get the rest by receiving it instead of achieving. Peace.